Hello and welcome to Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's show, we have a Barclays Women's Super League 101 for you. So excited to dive into Women's Super League content with everybody. A quick reminder before we get into this 101, you can watch all of our episodes and exclusive interviews on YouTube. Subscribe to our page to get notified when we go live at youtube.com/attacking third. Let's get into it. It's a Women's Super League extravaganza, and you can watch all Women's Super League matches exclusively on Paramount Plus. And because we are so excited about it, we are doing a giveaway. You can win a $100 Paramount Plus gift card to watch Women's Super League. All you need to do is subscribe to Attacking Third on YouTube, like this video and episode, and leave a comment on this episode with your social media handle, and we'll take a look at your prediction of the team to win Women's Super League. So we'll pick a winner, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to Paramount Plus. Subscribe, like this video, and comment with your winner prediction and social media handle, and you could be the winner of the $100 Paramount Plus gift card. That's a nice little giveaway there, Lisa.
It's huge. I mean, $100 to Paramount Plus, it's a full year subscription.
Yeah,
It's
I love
it's
that.
worth it. So yeah, like this video, subscribe, and tell us who you think is going to win the Super League in the comments of this video, and you'll win. I get to pick those winners. It's really fun. I put all the names in like one of those like name generator
Yeah.
things, and then it picks a winner, and then I DM you. It's really fun. We go back and forth. But we've had a lot of winners, and I am excited to get into this. It's crazy that the Super League is starting this week, September 10th. Tune in on Paramount Plus. There are a lot of great matches to watch. We'll get into more of the nitty gritty of what's happening in opening weekend of the Super League later this week. This whole week is full of Women's Super League content for our listeners and our fans, because we know how much you love American soccer and football in the States with the NWSL and the U.S. Women's National Team. And when we touch on the Euros, you guys are always so hyped. So now that we get to talk about the Super League, we'll fill you in on everything you need to know about it, because there's a lot. And for those that maybe don't know anything about it, stick around. We've got you all covered for this.
Yeah, this is really the episode for you, quite frankly. And you know what? If I were, someone watching this, trying to get all the details, trying to check out the 101 and trying to win a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus, I would probably put my team on. My team's Chelsea. I'll put myself on blast. Blues gonna be keeping a close eye on the games that happen on Paramount Plus. I'm excited about it for sure. I'm hopeful that throughout the duration of Women's Super League on Paramount Plus, that a team attaches itself to your heart, Lisa. That's my hope. That's my hope for you, buddy.
Yeah, so full disclosure, before we went live, we started recording, Sandra was like, hey, like, who's your team? Who are you supporting? And I said, I'm not attaching to my name to anyone right now. I'm staying neutral. My men's team is Tottenham, and I don't think I'm going to stick with Tottenham for the women's side. I mean, yes, of course, I'm going to watch all these games, cheer for all of them. Chelsea is incredibly entertaining to watch, but we'll see. I hope one team really comes out of the weeds for me and sticks into my heart as well. But anyone that doesn't have a team, keep listening. Maybe you'll find one after this episode, because we're going to fill you guys all in on what to do, who to watch, who to look out for, any names you might know, anything about the Super League that you want to know. You're about to find out right now.
Yeah, that's right. We like to fill in everybody on all the information that they need to have to stay most up to date. So we're going to do that with this WSL 101. And later in the week, we're actually going to have a deep dive on Women's Super League with women's football writer Sophie Lawson. Thank you to her for joining us, and we're really excited for you all to check out that episode when it publishes. And let's just dive in, Lisa. We got Barclays WSL 101. Here's what we got to talk about. First, we got to talk about, what is it? What is Women's Super League, right? It's the top flight of women's football in England, and it is a fully professional league with 12 teams. Seasons taking place from September to May each year, and this is going to be the 12th edition of it.
Yeah, so it's just 2 years older than the NWSL. We know that we're celebrating the 10th year of that in the States. How it works, it's similar to the men's side, honestly, in England and how they play. So each of the 12 teams, they play their opponents both home and away between September and May. And the top two teams at the end of the year, the top three teams, it was recently expanded to the top three teams in the Super League qualify for the UEFA Women's Champions League. So that is the golden nugget. That's where these teams want to be. It's another league that these teams can get into. Meanwhile, the bottom place team is relegated to the FA Women's Championship. So that is just below the Women's Super League. And then meanwhile, one team from the championship is promoted to the Super League each year. So last year, Birmingham City were relegated in the Super League. They finished the year with 11 points. They've been in the Super League since 2011. First time that Birmingham City has been relegated, but they are out this year. We get Liverpool back into the Women's Super League. They were promoted from the championship last year. So now we've got our 12 teams to run through that will be in this year's edition of the Super League.
I'm hyped for that. I think in this part of the 101, I think sort of highlighting that's probably one of the key differences, right? I think in terms of like women's Super League compared to NWSL, and we chat a little bit about this as well with Sophie. So please stay tuned for that episode. But talking about how every single year there's a bottom place team that is relegated, and then a top team from the champions to come on up essentially.
Mhm.
So you see a difference, year to year sometimes, depending, I think, on the season, which makes for an interesting 12 team race, in the next following season. So for this upcoming season, let's take a look at all the 12 teams that are going to be involved. It's going to be Chelsea. They're the reigning champions of the WSL, closed out with 56 points. Arsenal were the runners up last year. They narrowly missed out on the title by 1 point with 55 points. And Kim Little is their captain. So we're going to talk a little bit about her a little later in the show. Might be a name that is familiar with folks. In third place was West Ham United and Aston Villa as well. So that's kind of rounding out the top four. It's kind of interesting to sort of know how, like, when you're looking at teams kind of running the table, um taking a look at last year's standings compared to this year's standings, uh you have Chelsea at the top of the table, like, for the last several seasons. Quite frankly, there hasn't really been a change from last year to this year in terms of top of the standings, essentially. So I think taking a look at the rest of these teams, it's going to be an opportunity to maybe make some picks. I don't know.
Mhm.
Let's see how I feel. But Chelsea, Arsenal 1 and 2. Number 3, Manchester City. Number 4, Manchester United. Number 5, Tottenham. Number 6, West Ham. And number 7 was Brighton and Hargrove. Number 8 was Reading. Number 9 was Aston Villa. Everton, Leicester City, Birmingham City was the table for last year, and it's a little bit different
Mhm.
this year. So with Chelsea and Arsenal going 1 and 2, Manchester City, Man United, Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham United, Brighton and Hove Albion, Reading, Aston Villa, excuse me. It's the Spanish speaking side of my brain tuning in, y'all. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna just apologize for it now as the season kicks off. Aston Villa finishing ninth place. Everton, Leicester City, excuse me, and Liverpool, the newly promoted women's champions winners, and it's gonna be their first time back in the WSL since 2020.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I think, sort of looking at some of these teams, Lisa, I think you have to imagine that maybe the top 2 to top 4 are probably going to be the teams that people are going to have their eyes on, right? As
for
the
sure.
season goes from September to May.
For sure. Yeah. When you look at these teams, the 12 teams in it, Liverpool back since 2020. This is their first time back in the WSL in a handful of years. But in terms of the points, and mainly just looking at last season, the 2020-2021 season, or 2021-2022 season, with Chelsea, Arsenal, City, and United at the top. Those were the top four standings. When you look at the points disparity, how these teams finished out, Chelsea, of course, won the WSL. By 1 point. They had 56 points, and Arsenal right under them at 55 points. Meanwhile, City and United, 47 and 42 points, respectively, following right under them. And then there comes a little bit of a drop-off. Tottenham with 32 points, West Ham with 27 points, and then so on and so forth with Leicester City at the bottom. They finished 11th, so just up from relegation with 13 points. So the points disparity from 11 points, who was Birmingham City, who actually got relegated last year, they had 11 points, to Chelsea, who ended with 56 points. The disparity between top and bottom of this league is there. There is disparity, let's just say. And it comes down to the top three teams wanting to play in UEFA Champions League, and the bottom teams really not trying to be relegated. They want to stay in this competition. They want to stay at the top of their game. I think that's super interesting to look at about this Super League, because it's not so much as like, hey, we just want to finish in the top three so we can get Champions League, but we don't want to leave the Super League. We don't want to go to Women's Championship. We want to stay in this top league and stay competing. So I think like some of those teams that are right in the middle, whether it's West Ham, Brighton and Hove Albion, Reading, Aston Villa, Everton, they're all really in that mix to kind of shuffle between 5th and 10th place at any given point in this season. So it's kind of interesting to like break it down that way.
I think it sort of gives like, I think at a certain point in the season for Women's Super League, like you almost sort of have your eye on two separate races, like you're obviously looking, even just going off of last season, like you're obviously looking at who's going to be coming out on top, right? Like who's going to actually win the Shield. And it came down to like the last day, and Chelsea ended up winners on that one. But you're also looking at the other side, like I guess it's like a relegation race in that sense. Like you're trying to make sure
Honestly, it is,
you're trying to make sure that you're not dropping off out of this fully professional women's league. So I would imagine that in seasons past that there were those type of two different ends of the table that were being watched, and I would imagine that that's likely going to be the case coming up in the 2022-23 season as well. So we're going to keep our eyes on that for sure. So we've gone through all 12 teams for everybody, but you know what we got to do? We got to talk about some players in Women's Super League, players that you got to keep an eye on, big names you may have heard of, and any familiar names that might resonate with fans that might have played in the United States. So we're going to go through the players of the Women's Super League right after a quick break.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, let's talk about some of the top players to watch in Women's Super League. We're just going to start at the top with winners, right? Chelsea players. Sam Kerr, maybe a player that folks are familiar with. If not, let's fill you in really quickly. Sam Kerr, repping Chelsea FC, was the top goal scorer in the 2021 and 2022 season with 20 goals. And you might have some familiarity with this player. She's an Australian international, has competed on the international stage with the Matildas for several years, but has also spent a lot of time in NWSL. So fans of the NWSL will get to be reintroduced via Paramount Plus, quite frankly, to Sam Kerr. She had spent time in the NWSL in its inaugural season all the way through to 2019, split her time between 3 clubs, the Western New York Flash from 2013 to 14, Then with former Gotham FC side Sky Blue FC from 2015 to 2017. And then finally with the Chicago Red Stars from 2018 to 2019. And she pretty much was just racking up golden boot awards during her time in NWSL. And then it turns out she just went to another league and just has kept scoring ever since.
That's literally Sam Kerr scoring goals. Like that's just the full name, Sam scoring goals Kerr. Yeah, truly a fantastic player. She won 3 golden boots in the NWSL. She NWSL MVP, just like running the NWSL, and then she went over to Women's Super League and did the same thing, right? She scored 20 goals last year in the season. But in terms of top players and top people to watch, obviously Sam Kerr at Chelsea and I mean any of these players, but some other names that might stick out to people with Arsenal is Vivianne Miedema. She was the number 2 goal scorer last year in the Super League. She had 14 goals. So behind Kerr's 20, 14 was the next biggest one. That just goes to show you how much of a goal scorer Kerr is. But Miedema, 14 goals on the season. She was also tied in the league for assists at 8. She was tied with Beth Mead in that one as well. Mead also at Arsenal, who a lot of people might know as an English international. But Miedema, another incredible player with Arsenal to watch. And remember, Chelsea and Arsenal are basically the top front runners for this Women's Super League. They're coming off 56 and 55 points of the year, like just really incredible, a tight, close race. But because we're coming off of a summer of a lot of football, lots of different soccer to watch, and the Euros where England hosts, they went on an incredible run. There's a lot of familiar names, right, Sandra? We talked about this, how a lot of people tuned in to the Euros, and if you're watching the Super League, there's going to be a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are still a little hungover from the summer of soccer, quite frankly. July was a massive, massive time for football across the globe, quite frankly. We got to see so many amazing performances. Probably one of the biggest storylines coming out of July was the fact that England's women's national team went on to win the Euros. And you can find a number, in fact, several of the 2022 Euro champions across several teams in Women's Super League. So Lisa already mentioned Beth Mead, who had not just a really good season with club last season, but an amazing campaign in the Euros with England. But there's also Lauren Hemp with Man City, Alicia Russo with Man United. You've got Bethany England with Chelsea, Leah Galton with Man United, Georgia Stanway with Man City, Ella Toone, Man United, Fran Kirby with Chelsea, Hannah Blundell with Man United. So you could find so many of these players across different squads, quite frankly, and continue to, watch them and their performances, not just for, the Lionesses, but for club as well. So it's a level of familiarity again there if you were watching the July Euros. But honestly, if for whatever reason you were busy at the beach or had an active summer and didn't watch the Euros,
We're not blaming you. We're not blaming you.
Yeah, no. If anything, I'm like, yes, sign me up. But if you were unfamiliar with that, just know that these are a number of players representing England, English women's national team. You could check out in Women's Super League as well. But if you're here primarily as someone who loves NWSL, and you're like, you know what? I already subscribe to Paramount Plus. I watch a ton of NWSL matches. Now I'm gonna get into Women's Super League as well. There's a ton of crossover here, which I think is most exciting for you and I, Lisa, because it's like we were thinking about how much overlap there is and how many players have ties to NWSL clubs, their former clubs at this point, but now find themselves having success in Women's Super League. We obviously the biggest one is we mentioned Sam Kerr, probably one of the more prolific players still playing overseas in women's Super League. But we said racking up golden boots during her time in NWSL, making playoff appearances with the Chicago Red Stars, and now racking up titles in women's Super League. But there's a ton of other players across women's Super League here with ties to other national teams, whether it's Scotland's women's national team, or Iceland's women's national team, or even CONCACAF players as well. So we'll get into that. But some other players that NWSL fans might be familiar with overseas with women's Super League is Rachel Corsie. She's somebody who spent some time in NWSL since 2015. Scottish International was with Seattle Reign from 2015 to 2017, and Utah Royals from 2018 to 2020, and had a brief stint with Kansas City Current before making the move to Aston Villa now.
Yeah, Rachel Corsie, definitely a big player that NWSL fans will remember from her time in the NWSL. Also, Kim Little, she spent time here previously before this season as well. So from 2014 to 2016, she was with Seattle Reign. And then most recently, she came on loan to OL Reign over the summer. Little plays for Arsenal, so you can watch her there. A player that was with the Thorns, Dangy Brynjar daughter.
Brynjar's daughter.
Brynjar's daughter,
Yeah.
with the Thorns from 2016 to 2019. They play for West Ham United at this point. Shalina Zadorsky, she's a Canadian international, but she also had time in the NWSL. She played with the Spirit from 16 to 17, and then spent a handful of years with Orlando Pride from 2018 to 2020. She currently plays for Tottenham Hotspur, who was most recently actually back in the United States. We had a fantastic interview with Selena about coming to play in the Women's Cup at Racing Louisville against teams like OL Reign, players that she is very familiar with. She talked about her beef with some of the players and knowing them as former teammates, and being on the Canadian international team and understanding so many different levels of that. I mean, that was such a fantastic interview a month ago. Even. It feels like a month ago. My time is warped, Sandra.
Maybe like a few weeks. Women's Cup was what, like August 17th through the 20th, or August 14th through the 20th. So
we're already like first week of September. We're here. We're talking Women's Super League, but that was a fantastic interview with Shalina Zadorsky. Go check that out for sure.
Yeah, the audience, you don't have to go that far back into time to look for the episode, because it's only been a couple weeks. It feels like yesterday, quite frankly. But yeah, I was like part of us getting the broadcast rights at Paramount Plus. I was particularly hyped, was because this is the part that resonated for me. I was like, oh my goodness, like gonna get to see Kim Little in action again, and get to watch her like on the regular. Like, used to watch her with the Seattle Reign, but she had that brief stint with OL, so we got to like get reintroduced to her once more, and now she's going to be spending all her time in with Arsenal in the Women's Super League. But Brynjar's daughter winning a NWSL championship with the Thorns during her time here, so ton of overlap. It's not just players, quite frankly. It's there's actually head coaches as well with the National Women's Soccer League connections. Mark Skinner, lead coach of Manchester United at the moment. Matt Beard is also someone who has spent some time coaching in NWSL. Skinner had his time primarily with Orlando Pride. And Matt Beard was predominantly with Boston Breakers during his time with NWSL. So that's definitely a throwback. Wasn't aware that I was going to be making a Boston Breakers reference on a Women's Super League 101 episode, but hey, here we are. When there's overlap, you gotta talk about it. But yeah, cool to see some coaches, also have who have had some experience playing coaching in the United States. But there's also, we're talking a little bit about the summer of soccer and how we saw, the Lionesses go on and win the Euros, but there was also the CONCACAF W Championship that took place. So there are going to be a ton of players who are representing CONCACAF nations in the Women's Super League that you will be able to watch during this upcoming season with their respective WSL sides. And I'm really excited about so many of these players, particularly Khadijah Buchanan, because she is
Same.
linking up with Chelsea. That was one of the signings in the offseason that really kind of threw things off. But she's a player representing Chelsea now and Canada's national team. But she's not the only one, Lisa.
She's not. I mean, Bunny Shaw, it's such a huge signing. But she spent time with City before. That's who she was with last year. And everyone knows Bunny Shaw from the Jamaican women's national team. She just runs it. Also on that team, Drew Spence, who plays for Tottenham now. But a lot of Canadian internationals play in the WSL. Of course, we talked about Shalina Zadorsky. Khadijah Buchanan plays for Chelsea. Deanne Rose plays for Reading. Jessie Fleming also with Chelsea. So a lot of familiar faces if you're stuck in, not stuck, but like, a lot of NWSL, CONCACAF, you watch the W Championship. Like, there are so many familiar faces that once you start watching the WSL, you'll be amazed at how many players you actually know. And then all of the new players you get to learn that have spent a lot of their time in the Super League and understanding the European side of things, because having different, like the different nationalities and the different styles of football all come together to play and compete. That's what makes some of these teams so lethal. I mean, we just talked about Bunny Shaw going from City to Chelsea. Like, Chelsea is just acquiring incredible players to kind of strengthen their roster, deepen their bench. This season of the Super League is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm super hyped for it. I'm like, that's the part that I'm really excited, for me, for Sandra, like getting to line up all the soccer that I'm going to be watching, but is like kind of getting like, reintroduced to some of these players who were participating in, CONCACAF W Championship, or the players that have had ties to both NWSL and playing and representing CONCACAF regions, and Adriana Leon is another player going to be with a new team, actually, with Manchester United, after spending some time, I believe it was with West Ham and Matt Beard. But we're talking about like players who could have an impact in front of goal, and probably maybe be on some of the highlight reels. Leon is one of these attacking players that can sometimes shake some things up, for opposition. So a lot of players here for folks to get acquainted with or reacquainted with on their respective club teams. And we're excited to basically be here to provide as much coverage as possible of the upcoming Women's Super League season. It's here, Lisa. It's finally arrived.
It is finally here. You can catch everything on Paramount Plus starting September 10th. We're literally here. It's happening. This was fantastic. Remember, this was just a quick little skim across the top of Super League. It was a 101. We have an incredible conversation with women's football journalist Sophie Lawson later this week coming out. We do a bit of a deeper dive, talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty of the Super League. She gives us her insights, who to look out for, who to watch for. It's really fantastic. We're gearing everyone up for the start of the Super League on the 10th. It's here.
Keep that energy going. Keep it going. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Attacking Third. You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Attacking Third. And don't forget, you can win $100 Paramount Plus gift card. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like this video, and drop your social media handle in the comments with your pick of the team to win Women's Super League. And stay tuned for more on Women's Super League and our exclusive deep dive with Sophie Lawson. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.